When asked about Washington for the third time, the Prime Minister had two words: "I've been busy." And what came next shocked every reporter in that room.
$70 billion from the UAE, trade deals across 4 continents, all in 6 months. Canada just rewrote the rules while everyone was distracted.
Breaking tonight, the entire Trump narrative just collapsed in a single press conference. Carney didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He ended the conversation. Press conferences usually follow a predictable script. Leader walks in, answers questions, walks out. But what happened today in Johannesburg during the G20 summit wasn't just another media appearance. This was the moment when the world witnessed exactly what real leadership looks like versus what it doesn't. Because while Mark Carney stood ready to discuss global strategy, historic trade expansion, and Canada's rising influence across 4 continents, some reporters in that room were stuck recycling the same childish question about Donald Trump. A question Carney had already answered. A question that had nothing to do with why he was there. And that's when things got interesting. Carney didn't get defensive. He didn't play politics. He didn't raise his voice or lose his composure. He did something far more devastating. He shut down the entire Trump storyline with calm precision, strategic clarity, and a tone that said, "I'm leading a nation. I don't have time for this nonsense." This wasn't just a press conference. This was a masterclass in how leaders operate when they know they're winning. Let's walk through exactly what happened, because the pattern reveals everything about where global power is actually moving. The room settles. Cameras ready. The first question comes fast. Prime Minister, since the U.S. called off trade talks with Canada, has Mr. Trump returned your calls, texts, or accepted your apology over the Ontario ad? You can feel the energy in the room. This is the question they've been waiting to ask. The gotcha moment. The Trump drama they think defines everything. And Carney's response, controlled, sharp, final. He accepted the apology when I spoke to him, and we've had discussions. I've been busy. In that moment, the entire power dynamic flipped. The message was unmistakable. Canada is not waiting by the phone. Canada is not operating on Trump's timeline. Canada is not sitting idle hoping Washington notices. Canada has work to do, and Carney has been doing it. The reporter tries again, pushing for details, timelines, drama. When was the last time you spoke to the president? Carney's answer cuts through the noise like a knife. Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. A detail, not a priority, not a crisis, not the defining issue of Canadian foreign policy, just a detail. And then came the line that ended the entire storyline. I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now. When America wants to come back and have discussions on the trade side, we will have those discussions. Read that again. When America wants to come back. Canada isn't chasing. Canada isn't begging. Canada is building. And when Washington is ready to engage seriously, the door remains open. But Canada isn't waiting. This wasn't tension. This was clarity. This was a prime minister refusing to be dragged into manufactured drama when he's actively shaping his country's future on the global stage. Because here's what happened while reporters were obsessing over Trump phone calls. Carney's government passed a budget that, according to the government's own projections, is designed to catalyze up to $1 trillion of public and private investment over the next 5 years. Canada launched new trade agreements spanning multiple continents. Canada secured foreign direct investment at levels not seen before in the nation's history. Canada has announced plans for strategic offices in emerging markets. Canada began architecting one of the most ambitious trade corridor projects in modern economics. But the questions kept coming. Trump, Trump, Trump. As if the most important thing happening at the G20 summit was whether 2 leaders had texted recently. And that's when Carney shifted the entire room into global mode. He explained that Canada has layered partnerships now, deep strategic alliances with Europe and the UK built on shared values around privacy, sustainability, workers' rights, and territorial integrity. Calibrated relationships with emerging economies based on mutual benefit and respect. Practical engagement with nations across the spectrum without pretending every partnership means endorsing every policy. All relationships are not equal, Carney explained. They're not of equal depth. And certainly when we engage with a country, Canada's not endorsing everything that country does. The two do not follow. We calibrate our relationship. This is what mature diplomacy sounds like. This is what strategic thinking looks like. This is what happens when a leader understands that the world doesn't revolve around one bilateral relationship anymore. From there, Carney laid out the full architecture of Canada's new global position, and the scale was stunning. This year's G20 brought together nations representing 3/4 of the world's population, 2/3 of global GDP, and 3/4 of global trade. And that's without the United States formally attending. Let that sink in. The center of recruitment in the global economy is shifting right now in real time. The last century was defined by concentration of capital, production, and power, Carney explained. The next one will be defined by diffusion of technology, energy, and influence, by the rise of the global south and new roles for middle powers like Canada. And then he revealed what Canada has been building while everyone else was distracted. Yesterday, Canada met with the EU and Vietnam to explore ways of strengthening connectivity between CPTPP economies and European markets, including potential digital trade and supply chain cooperation. That's over 1 billion people. That's not incremental diplomacy. That's global architecture. That's a country designing tomorrow's trade map instead of reacting to yesterday's. FinDev Canada is setting up shop in Cape Town. That's not symbolic. That's establishing real presence in one of the fastest growing economic regions on the planet. Then there's the critical minerals play, where Canada is quietly positioning itself at the center of the clean tech and AI supply chains that will define the next decade. And the global health pledge, that's Canada stepping back into the kind of moral leadership the world hasn't seen in years, and the doctrine tying it all together. Canada is moving from reliance to resilience. But the headline that stunned the world came next. Earlier this week, Carney was in the United Arab Emirates meeting with leading sovereign wealth funds and CEOs. The result? The UAE has announced a framework to invest up to $50 billion US, roughly 70 billion Canadian dollars, into Canada's economy over the coming years if the projects go ahead. Not million. Billion. With a B, this framework represents one of the largest foreign direct investment commitments in Canadian history. That's not charity. That's confidence. That's the world betting on Canada's stability, strategy, and long-term strength. That's what happens when global capital looks at leadership and sees competence instead of chaos. From there, Carney rattled off partnership after partnership. A comprehensive economic agreement with the UAE, a new partnership with Sweden on trade, investment, and innovation, agreements with Germany on critical minerals, collaboration with Chile on technology. Indonesia, done deal. The Philippines, active negotiations to speed things up. And then the big one, a broader Canada-ASEAN free trade agreement. Now look, these talks are still in motion. Nothing's finalized yet. But if they land, Canada just locked in access to economies representing around 20% of global GDP. Let me repeat that. 20% of global GDP. Canada isn't diversifying away from one market. Canada is connecting to the entire world. Overall, we've announced almost a dozen new economic and security partnerships across 4 continents in less than 6 months, Carney concluded. 4 continents, 6 months, dozens of partnerships, billions in investment. This is what "I've been busy" actually means. What we witnessed today wasn't Carney defending his approach. It was Carney defining Canada's future. A future where Canada doesn't wait for American approval. A future where Canada builds its own alliances based on shared interests and mutual respect. A future where Canadian leadership is recognized globally, not questioned domestically. A future where Canada is a sought-after partner, not a supplicant hoping for attention. Carney walked into that press conference in Johannesburg as a prime minister. He walked out as an architect shaping the next chapter of global trade, demonstrating exactly what strategic patience and relentless execution look like when combined with clear vision. The reporters wanted Trump drama. Carney gave them a blueprint for Canada's next decade. The reporters wanted phone call timelines. Carney gave them 70 billion reasons why the world is investing in Canada. The reporters wanted to know if Trump was returning texts. Carney showed them a nation that doesn't need to wait for anyone's permission to lead. This is the difference between leadership and performance, between strategy and reaction, between building something lasting and chasing headlines, between a country that knows where it's going and one that's still figuring out the question. Look, almost everything I've shown you tonight comes from public data and official reporting. But the conclusions, those are mine. You decide what it means. If you want to see more analysis of how Canada is reshaping its position on the global stage while others are distracted, make sure you subscribe to Canada Next. We're covering the moves that actually matter, the deals that are actually being signed, and the strategy that's actually working. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.